Yes, I do.
That's not how she usually looks.
No, it's not.
Now, we showed you videotape of 3 photographs earlier. Judge Lance Ito threw out one of those photographs of an apparently battered Nicole Brown Simpson, but not until the jury had already seen it. Ito ruled prosecutors could not reliably link that picture to specific incidents of alleged abuse that he had agreed to then let present. A CNN USA Today Gallup poll indicates Americans' attitudes toward O.J. Simpson have not changed significantly since the trial began. The poll was conducted among 1,010 adult Americans last Friday through Sunday. Some 38% of those interviewed said they view O.J. Simpson as sympathetic. More than half, 54%, said they view the defendant as unsympathetic. The poll shows Judge Lance Ito is viewed favorably by 73% of Americans. Prosecutor Marcia Clark has a higher rating than Simpson's leading attorneys. Clark is viewed favorably by 63%. Johnny Cochran and Robert Shapiro are viewed that way by 48% and 49% respectively. We also find that despite the popularity of O.J. Simpson's recently published book, most Americans consider the book's timing to be inappropriate. 66% said it should not have been published while the trial is taking place. We're still waiting for the session to resume. We'll take a short break and be back with more right after this.
I'm about to perform an amazing act. Something that was virtually impossible for me to do just a short while ago. The act of breathing, made possible by Tavis D.
Now you can breathe easier. Prescription-strength Tavis D's got the medicine proven to relieve tough congestion. So for the next 12 hours...
I will not sneeze. My sinuses are clear. I can breathe easier.
Breathe easier with Tavis D.
There's nothing else like it.
Suddenly, every steering wheel lock is obsolete. Introducing Lockjaw. It guards your car in ways ordinary anti-theft devices cannot. Introducing Lockjaw. Ultra-strong case-hardened steel. Exclusive crossbar clamping. Patented deadbolt action. Introducing Lockjaw. Theft-deductible reimbursement up to $1,000. Lockjaw. Dollar for dollar, the best car protection you can buy. Lockjaw. Look for the shark.
This is RICO, the incredible expanding fax, the world's fastest digital laser color copier, the MV715, fax, copier, and laser printer in one compact machine. And soon, partnered with Microsoft, the intelligent fax system, communications gateway to the world. This is leadership. The future has our name on it. The name to know, RICO.
I'm Bill Berger, shareholder and director of the Berger Funds. 40 years of managing money taught me that the hardest step for an investor is often the first. The Berger Funds have made it easy for you to get going. With low minimums of $250 to start, $50 thereafter. So whether you're saving for an education for your children, a new home, or a comfortable retirement, there are 3 no-load funds to help you move towards your goals. The Berger 100, the Berger 101, and the Berger Small Company Growth Fund. For over 20 years, the Berger Funds have helped investors reach for their dreams. To learn more about the Berger Funds or a Berger IRA, call 1-800-333-1001 and ask for a free investment fact kit complete with a prospectus. It has what you need to get moving towards your financial goals at your own speed.
Come and discover the continent of Puerto Rico. Discover the warmth of our tropical beaches, the wonders of our natural beauty, the legends of our centuries-old cities, and the challenges of everything you've ever wanted to do. Only a continent could offer so many great vacation experiences. Only Puerto Rico puts it all within your reach.
Parties are still in chambers. We're expecting the cross-examination of Denise Brown to resume shortly. Earlier on the stand, Denise recounted instances where O.J. Simpson allegedly verbally abused his wife, Nicole.
What did the defendant say about your sister's weight while she was pregnant?
I used to call her a fat pig. He used to comment like this all the time.
Can he make hand gestures,
Yes,
holding both hands apart, as you just indicated on the record?
yes.
And did you actually hear him call your sister fat pig while she was pregnant?
Yes.
And after she had each of the children, would he make similar comments about her weight?
Yeah, he hated fat women.
He would tell your sister that he hated fat women?
He would always comment about her weight.
And you would be present on occasion when he made these comments?
Yes, I was.
Did your sister Nicole react in any way on those occasions when the defendant would call her a fat pig or say that he hated fat women?
At one point, she didn't care how much weight she gained. She just wanted him to leave her.
Let's go now to our CNN legal experts. Trial attorney Greta Van Susteren is observing the trial from our CNN Washington bureau. And here in Los Angeles, former prosecutor, now criminal defense attorney Roger Kosek. Greta, first to you. We have to be mindful there are 8 women on this jury. The portion of videotape that you just heard referencing this alleged abuse, how do you think the jury will respond to that?
Jim, I think this is one of the most dangerous aspects to the trial. We want the trial to be fair, fair to both sides, to O.J. Simpson and to the state of California who are prosecuting. But the problem that you have is when you introduced evidence like that O.J. Simpson called his pregnant wife a fat pig, chances are no one in this country, and certainly no one on the jury, is particularly going to like O.J. Simpson. But you don't want them to vote at the end of this case on whether they like O.J. Simpson or they don't like O.J. Simpson. You want them to vote and to reach a verdict based on the evidence that tends to link him to the crime. If the state can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, it ought to be a conviction. If the state can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, it ought to be an acquittal. But in the meantime, you don't want to poison the jury to dislike him because he has insulted his wife. And it's very dangerous to our fundamental sense of fairness. And that's why Judge Ito was very careful, even in throwing out that one picture of when Nicole Simpson was bruised, when the prosecution couldn't even link it to any witness. So we have to be very careful about this, and it does trouble me.
Roger, Greta talks about the prejudicial versus probative impact, and as we pan down, the camera's panning down in the courtroom, Judge Ito is once again on the bench. The jury is not yet in the courtroom. We still don't have an audio feed. What do you think about this prejudicial versus probative impact? Will the jurors be turned against O.J. Simpson because of this testimony, Roger?
Well, clearly that's what the prosecution wants to have happen, is that they want the jurors to believe that this is a man who acted violently in the past. And there's reason to believe that, while not convicting him solely because he's done that, but to show that this is a kind of man who had a motive or intent to do this kind of thing again. And it's clear that, you know, that is the problem, what Greta said, but that's already been decided, Greta, and the judge has allowed it in.
We're getting an audio feed. Let's listen into the proceedings right now.
Jury is not present. Mr. Shapiro, I understand that you have a better copy of the videotape that you want the court to preview before it's used.
If the court pleases, I think it might be a little clearer. It's hard to tell because the equipment we've shown it on is different than the court's equipment, but with the court's permission, we'd like to run it quickly to get the court's approval.
All right, and after we run that, let's run the Firestone interview that the prosecution wants to run, and we'll hear motions on that. I'm ready. Roll. Looked about the same to me.
This happens to be our own copy we published here. Obviously, the same copy.
Any comment, Mr. Darden? Looked about the same to the court.
To be exactly the same to me as well.
All right. I didn't notice any real difference in clarity. All right. Let's see the Firestone tape. I take my recollection from our record is that the prosecution's withdrawn their objection.
Yes.
All right.
We were both guilty. No one was hurt. It was no big deal, and we got on with our life. As a matter of fact, after
With the audio, please.
On 3 occasions in the last 8 years, O.J. Simpson appeared on this program with me. First off, a segment that originally aired in 1989. I asked Simpson about his pleading no contest to a charge of an assault on his wife, Nicole.
the day after this was over, we looked at each other. Hey, we had a fight. We were both guilty. No one was hurt. It was no big deal, and we got on with our life. As a matter of fact, after the Rose Bowl, we hosted a party for a great deal of amount of people, and mostly our friends. Took a trip with a couple of friends who never even knew we had an argument that night, and then 30 days later, I'm reading in the paper, this major thing had happened, quoting things that people say to one another in the middle of an argument, right and wrong. I mean, it wasn't all right what you read in the paper, But it was embarrassing, but because our relationship was strong and all our friends knew it, and they knew what they were reading wasn't necessarily the truth, hey, we just tried to put it behind us and ignore it as much as we could. I mean, we could have easily gone to court and been on the stand, and I think even the city attorney's office realized that they couldn't have won it, but that wasn't the point of filing. The point was to bring attention to a new law that's on the book, and who better do that than me? And I just said, why me? Why am I the guy that you choose to do this? I don't think I'm a good example, and I don't think this incident this night was a good example of what you guys are trying to, bring to light.
All right, Mr. Cochran, do you want to address the Firestone segment?
Yes, Your Honor, perhaps we should have an offer of proof regarding this, but
I mean, I can anticipate their offer of proof and then address it if Your Honor, whatever order Your Honor wants to proceed in. I have a 352 relevance objection to this. First of all, in talking with the individuals from that show, this is a tape apparently made in April of 1989, which doesn't say that. It was April of '89. About maybe 3 months after Mr. Simpson had entered a no contest plea. And everybody keeps talking about the search for truth. Why don't we just show the certified copy to the jurors that Mr. Simpson took responsibility for the January 1st, 1989 incident, went through counseling, paid his debt to society, and we've now spent the first week of this trial talking much about that. And I think at some point it becomes clearly a 352 incident. Now, if they're trying to show this in the context of an April 1989 show, and Mr. Simpson is a guest on Roy Firestone's close-up show, his response to what he'd already done, by this time he's entered the plea, he's on probation, Judge, and that's hardly the setting which one would want to talk about this spousal abuse situation involving one's wife, and you saw the response. So I think that this is irrelevant and immaterial. I think the real facts of this would be the certified plea, which we'd be glad to get for the court and present to the jurors of what happened in that case. That case was resolved except he had to successfully complete probation, which he did. And so I would object to the showing of the tape. I think that it certainly is 352, that it doesn't really add anything or help us particularly. If they've got a specific offer of proof that can change our minds, then that's one thing. But with the way the record stands now, I don't think they have that, Your Honor.
Mr. Darden?
Well, Your Honor, I don't think the law requires us to change Mr. Cochran's mind before we can admit relevant evidence in this case. Obviously, Mr. Simpson minimized his conduct on January 1, 1989. His statement to Roy Firestone, in fact, is more than just minimizing the incident. It's an outright, untruth. As for Mr. Simpson taking responsibility for his actions, he pled no contest. He never said, I'm guilty, I did it. He pled no contest. He said, I won't fight the charges anymore. He never admitted it. He never admitted beating his wife in public, though he did admit that in the letters to Nicole, the private letters to Nicole. And so his statement to Roy Firestone is a prior and consistent statement as well.
Subsequent.
Yeah, subsequent. In addition to that, I think the videotape becomes even more relevant given Mr. Shapiro's request that we play the videotape of the recital, or the events after the recital. When you look at that videotape, the one from the recital, and compare it to the Firestone video, Mr. Simpson doesn't seem real happy on June 12, 1994. And I think that perhaps we should allow Ms. Brown to look at both videos and compare and contrast the defendant's demeanor. And of course, we understand that the 1989 video was filmed 5 years prior. But I think that only enhances the relevancy of that video.
All right. That is absolutely grabbing at straws. That show is not 60 Minutes. That was Roy Firestone, ESPN Sports. And now we're to be told that look at it to characterize his happiness on 2 occasions. That's for the jury to determine. And I think the jury will clearly be able to determine that, as Mr. Darden said in his opening statement, he was in a dark and ugly mood. You saw what dark and ugly mood he was in. I think that's why they don't want this thing shown particularly. The other thing, O.J. Simpson was shown in 1989, about 3 months after he entered the plea. And nobody ran around worrying about when Spiro Agnew entered a no contest plea. The judge tells you, as you know, Your Honor, that a no contest plea is tantamount to a guilty plea. So he accepts responsibility for that, and he did it. So, I mean, all the rest of this is falderall. We have to go through all this time, when the man has paid his debt to society. It has nothing to do with a murder case, and in fact, it is character assassination. And all these little attempts to bring these other incidents in have nothing to do with anything. We should get on with this case, Your Honor, and so this is just another example, and we object. And I want to again reiterate, this is a sports show in which he responds and talks about it. And the other thing, he talks about a consistent statement. He is consistent with what he said to the detectives on that night. They had a wrestling match at some point, but he accepted responsibility. He wrote the letters to his wife. What he said to his wife was what's important, not what he said on television to Roy Firestone and the characterization of it. And what he did in court
was important, because that's where it came in, that's where it counted.
Mr. Cochran, before you surrender the podium there, let me ask you one other question, however. As to the foundational issues, as to the Firestone tape, do you lodge any objection now that you've had the opportunity to speak with the producer or whoever it was, the representative?
No, I don't lodge any objection based upon foundation, except to say, this is a sports show, Your Honor, where he's a guest on the sports show.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah, and the rest of the show, let me just say this to you. The shows are 24 minutes and 30 seconds. They've taken 4 minutes out of context. And you know what, Judge? If they're so interested in the truth, why don't they show the entire tape when O.J. Simpson, who's there as a sports star, is talking about sports matters? And then he's hit with this question about the thing with his wife. Now, wouldn't that be relevant if we're
As the attorneys continue to argue the admissibility of videotape evidence, we'll take a short break and be back with more of CNN's coverage of the Simpson trial after this.
Roy Firestone.
We've got the flu.
Just like last year.
He's achy and feverish.
She's sneezing and coughing.
We take care of each other.
With Tylenol.
With Tylenol flu.
For the aches and fever of the flu, doctors recommend Tylenol 4 times more than all other pain relievers combined. And for coughing and congestion, nothing beats powerful Tylenol flu.
I feel better.
Me too.
Better than me?
No.
What your flu needs most is what doctors recommend most, Tylenol.
Considering what your business has to figure,
25, 130. How much time we got left?
you may not have figured that if your business uses AT&T, you're probably on the wrong calling plan. Over half of AT&T's customers are, which is why hundreds of thousands of businesses are trading in AT&T and investing in Proof. MCI will analyze your AT&T bill and give you proof positive, written proof of how much your business can save by switching to MCI, proving once again the only savings that are true are the ones you can see.
This is RICO, the incredible expanding fax, the world's fastest digital laser color copier, the MV715, fax, copier, and laser printer in one compact machine. And soon, partnered with Microsoft, the intelligent fax system, communications gateway to the world. This is leadership. The future has our name on it. The name to know, RICO.
We could really use a vacation.
Come and discover the continent of Puerto Rico. Discover the warmth of our tropical beaches, the wonders of our natural beauty, the legends of our centuries-old cities, and the challenges of everything you've ever wanted to do. Only a continent could offer so many great vacation experiences. Only Puerto Rico puts it all within your reach.
The judge is going to continue now with the testimony of Denise Brown. The jury is going to be brought back into the courtroom. Let's bring Roger Cossack in here. We heard an objection by the defense over the use of this second videotape with Roy Firestone where O.J. Simpson recounts that 1989 incident. We heard a 352 mentioned. Is that a relevancy objection?
352 is that part of the California evidence code that has to do with prejudice versus probative value. What they really say is this. Look, all evidence hopefully has some probative value, proves something. But some evidence, just the very nature of it, is so prejudicial that whatever amount of proof is going to come from it is far outweighed from the negative kind of value and unfair value that it had. And that's what the defense is saying. Look, you know, whatever this proves, it's far outweighed by the fact of O.J. Simpson appearing not to take responsibility for what he did. What are you really trying to get from this tape? Can't you get it some other way? And that's why Cochran said, listen, we'll put a certified copy of the plea in. You don't have to see this tape. If that's what you're trying to get, that he pled guilty or pled no contest, we'll admit that. The tape isn't necessary. The prosecution, on the other hand, wants that tape because, you know, it's a jazzier version. It's more meaningful.
Let me interrupt you now. The camera has panned down once again. The jury is seated, and once again coming up to the stand is Denise Brown for cross-examination by Robert Shapiro.
Good afternoon, Ms. Brown. You're reminded you're still under oath. All right. Mr. Shapiro, do you wish to complete your cross-examination?
like to show you a videotape and ask if you can identify the people who are depicted in the tape that are relevant to this case. Would you please do that for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Shapiro, what is the evidence number on this
I
tape?
believe this is going to be 1002.
All right.
The court pleases. Thank you.
Paul Revere.
Recognize what is depicted in that brief video?
I saw us saying goodbye to OJ
And where were you saying goodbye to O.J.?
at the Paul Revere High School.
And was
Or
this
middle school.
directly after the recital that you have just testified to?
Yes.
May we just show some portions of it, Your Honor, and stop it so Ms. Brown may be able to identify for the jury the people who are in the video?
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Judge.
This is Ron Fishman.
Is he married to somebody that you know?
Cora Fishman.
Thank you. May we continue, please? Now, there's somebody who is wearing looks like a blue shirt with dark hair facing a gentleman who is O.J. Simpson. Do you know who that person is?
That's me.
And what were you just doing at that time?
I gave him a kiss goodbye.
And right to your right is a gentleman. Who is that?
That's my father.
And right to your left is another person.
That's my mother.
Thank you. May we continue, please? May we stop it right there? What was your mother doing there?
Oh, I just saw the car go in front of it.
Okay, let's
I'm
see if
sorry.
you can back it up and show person who was just kissing O.J.'s room?
My mother.
May we continue, please? Person now shaking hands with O.J.'s room.
I don't see anybody shaking hands.
All right, let's see
You
if
talk-
we can play that back again, please.
My dad.
And there's a vehicle in front. Whose vehicle is that? Can you tell?
I'm not sure if that's Dominique's or Nicole's Jeep.
Both have identical Jeeps?
Yes.
Or similar Jeeps?
Yeah.
Can we continue, please? The gentleman right here in this room?
That's Ron Fishman.
Okay. And the little boy who is getting a kiss and a hug?
That was Justin.
That's Justin?
Yes.
Can you continue, please?
Yes. I think it was Nicole.
I'd like to show the witness a photograph that we would like to have marked as our next exhibit, 1003. May we put this up on the screen, Your Honor?
People.
In this picture, would you identify the people, please?
That's OJ and Sydney.
And is this the way they were dressed at the school?
Sydney's costume looked different.
So you would say this photograph, in your opinion, was not taken after the recital?
Well, the top part is Sydney's costume, but I don't know, the bottom doesn't portray the bottom of her costume here.
So you would say that this
Oh, there it does.
I'm sorry?
Okay. Now it does. He just changed it.
Okay. Would you say this is the way that Sydney looked after the recital?
With her costume on, yes.
I'm sorry.
With her costume on, yes.
And is that the way OJ looked after the recital?
I wasn't there when the picture was taken.
No, I said, is that the way OJ looked after the recital?
Question's vague, Your Honor.
Yeah,
Overall.
I guess.
Nothing further, thank you.
We'll leave the picture up for a moment, Your Honor.
Certainly.
Ms. Brown, take a look at Sydney's the expression on her face.
Yep.
The defendant is smiling, isn't that correct?
Yes, he is.
Sydney smiling,
No, she's not.
and she's looking away, isn't
Yes, she is.
she? She just danced in a recital at her school, had she not?
Yes, she did.
Thank you. Mr. Shapiro, about Ed McCabe, a former boyfriend of yours.
Yes?
And you told us that he is in the advertising business, is that correct?
Yes.
Was he in the advertising business in the early 80s?
Yes, he was.
Was he in the advertising business that night when he threw you and your sister out of the house?
Yes, he was.
Excuse me. Sorry, was there an objection, Your Honor?
What's the grounds?
While the attorneys discuss a possible objection, we'll take a short break and be back with more of CNN's coverage of the Simpson trial after this.
I want to know about meeting that special someone.
Sorry, can't help you there.
I want to know more about a diet I can live with.
No way, not in this commercial.
I want to know more about Rogaine.
Rogaine with minoxidil?
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Okay, just call this number now for a free information kit on Rogaine topical solution. It could help answer your questions because it's filled with all kinds of facts about Rogaine. And because you need a prescription to get Rogaine, we'll send you a list of local doctors and special money-saving offers to help you decide if Rogaine is right for you.
But I want to know right now.
We'll mail it to you today. So what are you waiting for? Call now for your free information kit. Call 1-800-446-9333.
We're the scrubbing mama in the new trigger sprayer. Oh, yeah, he's our new trigger sprayer.
There's only one trigger that gives you scrubbing bubbles. Dow's new trigger sprayer. It has us foaming and clinging instead of running like other triggers, easily removing dirt and soap scum. Dow Bathroom Cleaner's new trigger sprayer. The only trigger with scrubbing bubbles.
We work hard so you don't have to.
With all of the changes that have taken place in American politics, there's a lot of new faces in Washington. New senators, new congressmen and women, and new heads of some very powerful committees. In fact, the only committee that hasn't changed, you'll be glad to know, is the Welcoming Committee. Crossfire, weeknights, 8:30 Eastern on CNN.
Watch your step.
On redirect, Denise Brown is once again being shown the videotape, the amateur video taken on June 12, 1994 at the dance recital.
Ron Fishman, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Is he someone that you've seen since your sister was murdered?
Yes, I have.
Do you know any reason as to why he would avoid a subpoena in this case?
Objection.
With the court reporter, please.
While the attorneys go to sidebar, let's bring in our legal analyst. First, Greta Van Susteren. We heard an objection there when on redirect, Denise Brown was asked about Ron Fishman and why he might seek to avoid being served with a subpoena in this case. What's going on here, in your opinion?
Plain and simple, it's an improper question, and Mr. Darden knows it. This witness doesn't have a clue why anyone else would avoid a subpoena. You can't jump in the mind of the other person. You only ask what this person knows. Clearly improper, and what Mr. Darden was attempting to do was to suggest something that perhaps this Mr. Fishman was somehow not a credible person. It was a terrible thing for Mr. Darden to do, and he should know better.
Greg Lamont made an interesting point earlier. We heard the defense contention that on the day of the murders, that O.J. Simpson was not able to shuffle cards, and yet here in this videotape taken hours later and hours before the murders, we see him picking up his son, Justin. Could that hurt the defense, in your opinion, Greta?
Oh, it sure can, Jim. You know, there's a double-edged sword to lots of evidence. And here the defense claims that Mr. Simpson is practically incapacitated due to physical injuries. And then we don't hear people telling us about it. It's not testimony. We can actually see his physical condition, at least as far as his arms. He can lift a young child out of the car, and he doesn't look impaired. That hurts the defense.
Roger Cossack, what's your assessment of the videotape and its potential impact in this case?
Well, as Greta points out, it's a double-edged sword. You know, it may show that perhaps he wasn't as dark and brooding as they're trying to point him out to be, but on the other hand, he certainly looks physically fit and active and doesn't seem to have any problem lifting the child. Problem with this trial and the problem with all of this testimony this morning is it seems to be one long sidebar conference that's interrupted from time to time with a little testimony. I don't understand this. Greta, I have to apologize to you, but believe me, this is not the way it normally works in California. The judge should be in much better control, I believe, of what's going on in this courtroom. These sidebar conferences are interminable and are breaking up what should be a well-paced direct and cross-examination. I don't think Darden's questions are done well. I thought Shapiro's cross-examination wasn't bad.
Roger, it's very clear this prosecutor is basically violating the rules, and he's getting hauled to the bench every time he does. He needs to read the rules of evidence and conform his conduct to it.
And speaking of sidebars, the attorneys are still at sidebar. We'll take a short break and be back with more right after this. Stay with us.
Tonight, a comprehensive review of the day's proceedings and legal analysis of the O.J. Simpson trial. 11:30 Eastern on CNN.
Automotive experts praised our cab-forward innovation, smiled on our continued success, and followed us to a new plateau, naming Chrysler Cirrus Motor Trend's Car of the Year. Your Chrysler Plymouth dealer now presents the Car of the Year celebration. For a limited time, get up to $18.61 in package discounts and values on Chrysler New Yorker, great savings on Concorde, and great lease rates on Chrysler LHS. Now, during the Car of the Year celebration.
See your Greater Bay Area Chrysler Plymouth dealer today.
So, you think Circus Circus is just for kids? Circus Circus, it's just for kids.
Crossfire, now at a new time, 8:30 Eastern tonight on CNN.
Denise Brown is once again watching the videotape, that amateur videotape shown on June 12th. The last question from Chris Darden. Did O.J. Simpson say he was suffering from acute arthritic flare-up in his hands when he shook your father's hand? She said no, he did not. Let's listen in.
Back on June 12, 1994.
He weighs about 75 pounds.
And Mr. Simpson didn't appear to have any difficulty lifting his 75-pound son, did he?
No.
Have you been able to tell at all which car Nicole was in?
I haven't really been paying attention to the cars.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, let me roll back then just a moment to the arrival of the second vehicle.
There's a difference between the two.
And what is that difference?
Dominique's has a V8 on the back and Nicole's does not. A little sign on the right back corner.
Okay, well, let's go back to...
I think I did.
Okay. Okay. You saw an emblem in the lower right-hand corner of that black Cherokee?
I think so.
Okay.
No.
Do we have the same capability on this VCR? Let me ask. Do we have a slow-mo and or freeze frame? Obviously freeze frame. I want to know, do we have a slow-mo capability on this case, this VCR?
No.
Okay.
We have all this other space-age stuff and no slow-mo, jeez. Ms. Brown, you think you saw the V8 emblem on the right rear of the first
I think there
vehicle?
was something there.
Okay. And that vehicle would have been driven by your sister Dominique?
Right,
So the second vehicle then would be the one driven by your sister Nicole?
right.
Did you ever see the defendant address your sister Nicole that afternoon?
That evening, no.
Continue the tape. Now, the defendant's demeanor, up to the point that he smiles at Dr. Fishman, apparently, is that his normal public demeanor?
Before he smiles at him?
Yes.
No, he's usually happy.
And did he appear happy up to the point in which you saw him smile?
No, no, not really. Nothing in particular.
Okay. Go ahead. Play the tape. Was there anything at all unusual about the way the defendant used his hands that afternoon that you saw?
No.
Now, you told us that you had an alcohol problem, right?
Yes.
Did the defendant have an alcohol problem?
Sustained.
Stand up one moment, Your Honor. Thank you.
Right now on the stand, once again, obviously, is Denise Brown, reviewing the June 12th videotape, the amateur tape depicting O.J. Simpson. And as you heard, the prosecution is trying to use this tape to its advantage, suggesting that O.J. Simpson did not suffer from an arthritic flare-up, as the defense has contended. Let's listen in once again to the proceedings.
Different inside?
Yes.
His demeanor at the rear of the auditorium was different than it was out in public in front of these other people?
Yes.
What was the difference? What is the difference?
Well, at the end of this tape, he was laughing and smiling and showing. Inside the auditorium, he wasn't. Inside the auditorium, he was watching Nicole and looking, and no smile on his face at all.
Thank you.
Mr. Shapiro? Certainly.
Robert Shapiro is about to re-cross-examine this witness. He's asked for some time to confer with counsel. And while he does, we'll take a short break. We'll be back with more of CNN's coverage of the Simpson trial after these words. Stay with us.
My sister and I are best friends. Since we were girls. And just like back then, we look out for each other. That's right. So I told her how my arthritis kept me awake some nights and how I was too worried to take anything. She was. But Ann, she helped. She gave me Tylenol PM. It stops the pain. It helps me sleep. And now with Tylenol PM, I'm up with the sun, fresh as a daisy. Oh, it's so nice to have her to share my worries with. Now if she'd only share her secret for growing roses.
Rest easy. It's Tylenol PM.
Hold it. This isn't you, it's an older guy. Oh, that was before I got rid of my gray hair with Just for Men hair color.
Come on, that's too natural to be hair coloring.
Just for Men. Apply and in 5 minutes rinse. Gray is blended away for a totally natural look.
Think it'll work for me? In 5 minutes.
Just for Men looks too natural to be hair coloring. And now try Just for Men Color Gel for the hard-to-color hair of mustaches and beards. Brush in, rinse out. Just 5 minutes.
Forget the way you've been brushing your teeth. And remember Interplaque, the power plaque remover with twisting bristles. Clinically proven to clean better than manual brushing and help prevent gum disease. Interplaque from Bausch & Lomb.
Considering what your business has to figure,
25, 5, 30. How much time we got left?
you may not have figured that if your business uses AT&T, you're probably on the wrong calling plan. Over half of AT&T's customers are, which is why hundreds of thousands of businesses are trading in AT&T and investing in Proof. MCI will analyze your AT&T bill and give you proof positive, written proof of how much your business can save by switching to MCI, proving once again the only savings that are true are the ones you can see.
We're the scrubbing mama in the new trigger sprayer. Yeah, he's our new trigger sprayer.
There's only one trigger that gives you scrubbing bubbles. Dow's new trigger sprayer. It has us foaming and clinging instead of running like other triggers, easily removing dirt and soap scum. Dow Bathroom Cleaner's new trigger sprayer. The only trigger with scrubbing bubbles.
We work hard so you don't have to.
Robert Shapiro is re-cross-examining Denise Brown, asking if on that videotape it appeared that O.J. Simpson screamed out or let out a sound of pain when he picked up his son. Let's listen in.
This afternoon, however, I believe you may be recalled as a witness. You're directed not to discuss your testimony with anybody other than the lawyers in the case. You understand the order?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Darden, your next witness, please.
The next witness is going to be Candace Garvey. I'm not sure that she's down yet.
Bring in our analysts now to get their assessment of how this witness went on direct and cross-examination. Roger Cossack, first to you.
Well, I must say that because of these interminable delays and sidebar conferences, a witness who I think should have had a much more dramatic impact, because certainly from what I saw last Friday she did not seem to have that kind of dramatic impact. I thought that Mr. Darden's questions could have been better. I thought that Shapiro did the only thing he could do, which was sort of treat her very gently and hope to get off without too much damage.
And just to let our viewers know, the camera is panned up in the courtroom because they are still waiting for the next witness, Candace Garvey, to come down into the courtroom. And while they're waiting, the judge has excused the jury for about 10 minutes. Greta Van Susteren, you talked about a double-edged sword with this videotape. I think you saw that come true, didn't you?
We did, Jim. The prosecution did develop the fact that Mr. Simpson was able to lift his son, and the jury is able to actually see what happened that day. They get to evaluate whether or not they believe he was as physically impaired as Mr. Cochran has led them to believe during the course of the opening statement. That's what's so powerful about videotapes. They're actually there. It's not like it has to filter through some witness.
And just to bring you up to date, the attorneys are at sidebar outside the presence of the jury. Roger Cossack, do you think that this video may come back and haunt the defense? The defense did push for it to be entered into evidence.
Well, you know, it certainly is proof that he doesn't seem to be having much difficulty lifting the child, and he doesn't seem to be having much difficulty shaking hands with the other men, and, you know, they've claimed that he couldn't even shuffle a deck of cards. Now, you know, I'm not a doctor, and I don't know what one relation has to another, but, you know, he certainly looked in fine health to me.
Roger, share with us your thoughts about the preparation of a witness and how important that is on direct examination.
Jim, any lawyer will tell you, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, that before you put a witness on the stand, you should go over their testimony several times so that you know what they're going to say and they know what questions they're going to ask. They're going to be asked. That's what happens on cross-examination, is they don't have a time to prepare. But on direct examination, they should know what's going on. It seemed to me today, and I may be wrong, but it seemed to me certainly that last part where they were looking at the videotape, that Mr. Darden and Miss Brown were winging it. And he was asking questions with sort of a general idea of what she was going to say, but not too sure of himself. Now, you know, I don't want to criticize Mr. Darden. I'm not doing this case, but it just didn't look good to me.
Greta, we once again saw Denise Brown deliver some rather tearful testimony. Would you suggest that this testimony had the same emotional impact as Friday's, or perhaps less so?
Well, it's funny, Jim, it's very hard to sort of examine her testimony and try to figure out exactly what the jury thought. But I'll tell you, when she was on direct examination today and she started to cry, you couldn't help but feel tortured listening to her. You really experienced her grief. But if the jury sort of steps aside and evaluates her testimony, that videotape may really have helped the defense, because O.J. Simpson looks very different than what she portrayed. And it may occur to the jury that this woman, because of her horrible grief and all she has suffered, perhaps remembers the events much differently, because that videotape does tend to look like something different. O.J. Simpson was smiling. He was talking to the family. He wasn't sitting there with a glazed look that she seemed to suggest on her direct examination.
Greta, did you think that she was as prepared as you would have expected in terms of how important a witness she was supposed to be for the prosecution?
Actually, it wasn't a question of her being prepared. I was surprised at Mr. Darden. Mr. Darden did a number of things that I thought were improper and has caused a lot of bench conferences. So I think that she did a very good job. She did the best that she could. My criticism would be with the preparation with Mr. Darden.
Let's revisit Denise Brown's most emotional testimony when she recounts the last time she saw her sister Nicole on the night of June 12, 1994.
What did you do after dinner was over?
We got up and we walked out, and Nicole was gonna go get some ice cream with the kids, and we kissed each other goodbye. The last thing I told her was that I loved her. I'm sorry.
Take a few moments now.
Do you mind?
Jordan,
Yes, Johnny?
I asked your witness if she wanted to take a few moments.
I'm okay. Be all right.
Ms. Brown, when you last saw your sister, what was her demeanor?
She was happy because we'd made so many plans to go do stuff. We were gonna take the kids on a camping trip. We were gonna go to Yosemite. We were gonna go to Club Med. We were gonna just do everything with the children.
Denise Brown has concluded her testimony. The next witness to be called is Candace Garvey, a close friend of Nicole Brown Simpson's, who we believe was at the dance recital of Nicole's daughter on June 12, 1994. The attorneys are still at sidebar. We'll take a short break and be back with more of CNN's coverage of the Simpson trial after this. Stay with us.
Tonight, a comprehensive review of the day's proceedings and legal analysis of the O.J. Simpson trial. 11:30 Eastern on CNN.
Put the floods of 1995 behind you. Watch Rebuilding After the Flood every Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday on Multivision Cable Channel 8.
If you look around Sonoma County, you're going to find that the 24-Hour Health Club is definitely the most complete, convenient facility you're going to find in all of Sonoma County.
Every Monday and Wednesday night, my husband meets here after work and put the kids in the daycare, and we have a little workout together, and then we go spend time in the jacuzzi, and it's really good for our relationship.
The 24-Hour Health Club, 680 East Cotati Avenue in Cotati. For a limited time with no initiation fee, you have choices. Call 795-0400 for details on Choices. Joan Collins on Larry King Live tonight.
New X14 kitchen cleaner challenges Formula 409 here on this baked-on grease.
I can't believe it. The X14 took everything off without scrubbing.
New X14 kitchen cleaner.
I would switch to this right now.
Panasonic camcorder tapes play in your VHS recorder. Not all camcorders can do that. If anyone tells you that's not important, they're giving you a snow job. Get the Panasonic camcorder or take your chances.
Panasonic, just slightly ahead of our time.
Somewhere on this earth, there is still a place where you can find cleaner, safer drinking water. Your kitchen. Pure. The only water filter that removes 93% of the lead in your water and automatically shuts itself off when the cartridge is full.
We could really use a vacation.
Where we can live life instead of just watching it.
We could really use a vacation.
That puts everything at our fingertips while taking us to new heights.
Discover the continent of Puerto Rico. Pristine beaches, 500 years of history, and an unforgettable vacation. Only Puerto Rico puts it all within your reach.
This is Rico, the incredible expanding fax, the world's fastest digital laser color copier, the MV715, fax, copier, and laser printer in one compact machine. And soon, partnered with Microsoft, the intelligent fax system, communications gateway to the world. This is leadership. The future has our name on it. The name to know, Rico.
We're the scrubbing mama in the new trigger sprayer. Oh, yeah, he's our new trigger sprayer.
There's only one trigger that gives you scrubbing bubbles. Dow's new trigger sprayer. It has us foaming and clinging instead of running like other triggers, easily removing dirt and soap scum. Dow Bathroom Cleaner's new trigger sprayer. The only trigger with scrubbing bubbles.
We work hard so you don't have to.
10-minute recess in the O.J. Simpson trial is just about over. The jury is being escorted back into the courtroom. The next witness we expect to take the stand is Candace Garvey, who was a friend of Nicole Brown Simpson's, and we are also told was present on June 12, 1994 at the Simpsons' daughter's dance recital. Roger Cossack, what is the prosecution now trying to weave together? More evidence of past alleged abuse?
Well, yes, and I'm sure that they're also bringing in Candace Garvey to corroborate what Denise Brown had to say. Here was another witness who was present at the school, and one would expect that the prosecution is bringing her in to back up what Denise said and perhaps add a few facts of her own.
Do you think that Christopher Darden was somehow shaken by the earlier ruling today regarding the inadmissibility of that photograph? His rhythm seemed to be off since then.
You know, Jim, I think he must have, but I don't see how he ever expected to get that photograph in without a foundation.
Let's listen in as the judge addresses the court.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pleaded before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please be seated. Please state and spell your first and last names for the record.
Candace, C-A-N-D-A-C-E, Garvey, G-A-R-V-E-Y.
Mr. Darden.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Garvey. You married to Steve Garvey, the former L.A. Dodger?
I am.
And were you also a friend of Nicole Brown?
I was.
Did you attend her daughter Sydney's recital on June 12, 1994?
Yes,
And did you see the defendant here at the recital?
I did.
Did you arrive at the recital with Nicole Brown?
No, I did not.
You have children yourself, is that correct?
Yes, I do.
Were any of your children participating in the recital?
Yes.
When you saw the defendant inside the recital auditorium, did you notice anything unusual about him?
I did.
And what was that?
Well, my husband and I walked in, and
All right, sustained. Ms. Garvey, Mrs. Garvey, if you would, listen very carefully to the question that the attorneys ask of you. Please answer precisely the question that they ask.
Okay.
All right? Don't volunteer anything. The attorneys will ask you if it's important. Mr. Darden.
Mrs. Garvey, when you walked into the recital auditorium, did you see the defendant?
I did.
Did you notice anything unusual about him at that time?
Yes, I did.
And what was that?
It was just, he was not the same as I had ever seen him before.
And you had seen him on many prior occasions, is that correct?
That's correct.
And how was he different? How is it that he was not the same that evening?
Well, in the normal situation, he is very charismatic and gracious and you know, very kind and a happy person. And this time, I immediately noticed that it was a vast departure from the norm of how I've ever seen him before. He just seemed a little vacant, non-responsive.
You said things to him and he didn't respond?
That's correct.
What kinds of things did you say to the defendant?
I you know, said hello, hi, how are you? And he stared at my husband and I, and really nothing in response. And so I said, well, I had the baby. And he just stared at me and said, yeah, Nick told me. And my husband walked away at that time. And I almost couldn't even move. I mean, I knew something, you know, was wrong, and I felt very uncomfortable, and I just...
Okay. Have you ever seen the defendant angry?
I saw him upset once before.
Okay. And the time that you saw him upset before, how did his demeanor on June 12th compare to that prior occasion?
Well, the one time I'd seen him, he was...
Although we couldn't get some foundation as to where and when the prior occasion was, how long ago.
Did you attend a Christmas party in 1993?
I did.
Who threw that Christmas party?
I think we have the same other problem once you move on to the date of the recital.
Okay, but you have seen the defendant angry on prior occasions?
I did.
So his demeanor on June 12th, how did that compare to his demeanor on that other occasion when you saw him angry?
Well, the other occasion, he was vocally angry and visibly, vocally, you know, and angry. This time, it was almost like he was simmering. I mean, it's hard to describe. He just, when he stared at me, I felt like he was looking right through me, and it scared me a little bit.
Did you ask him what was wrong?
I did not.
Did you suggest to him that he take any particular course of action?
I did not. Not at that time.
Have one moment. With Nicole?
I did not.
Did you sit in the same row that she sat in?
No.
Did you see where the defendant sat during the recital?
Yes.
Where did he sit?
He was in the very last row on the right-hand side of the auditorium.
Was he seated next to someone else?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And where was Nicole seated at that time?
I saw her once when I came back. I left the recital at one point and came back. And I saw her at the back of the auditorium well, I came in a different way than I came in the first time. So If he was facing down, looking down to the stage, he was on the right, she was on the left.
Okay. Did you ever see the defendant sitting in a corner, in the corner of the auditorium?
That's where I saw him. He was in the back corner of the auditorium.
And did you watch him at all?
I saw him as I was leaving the first time. I left in the middle of the recital because my daughter, as it turns out, her dance was either the last or the second to last dance. And so I needed to go home and come back, and I saw him as I was leaving.
And on that occasion, when you saw him seated, saw the defendant seated in the corner of the auditorium, did he still appear angry?
Sustained.
Or did he appear angry?
Yes.
Overruled.
Did you notice whether or not the defendant was paying attention to the events going on the stage?
Overruled.
No.
You never
Well,
paid-
could you please say that again?
Okay. Was the defendant paying attention to what was going on stage, or was he looking elsewhere?
When I was leaving the first time, he was sitting, and I don't think he was watching. I don't know if he was watching. He was looking over to the other side of the auditorium.
To his
When
left?
I first, and yes, because I came up and spoke to him.
Okay. And so that we understand clearly, the defendant was seated on the right hand of the auditorium, is that correct?
Yes.
The right-hand side?
Right.
Okay, and Nicole was seated to the defendant's left?
Yes.
Okay. And where was the stage?
In front. If I'm looking from the back of the auditorium down to the stage. That's my view. Does that make sense?
Okay, so the stage was in front of the defendant.
That's
then.
correct.
Okay, but he wasn't looking toward the stage when you looked at him?
When I was walking up towards him to leave, I mean, I don't know who he's looking at, but he was not looking down towards the stage because I don't think he saw me coming because I walked right up to him and he was not looking in my direction.
Okay. Did you notice anything unusual about the defendant's facial features while he was at the recital?
Just his jaw was set. It was just not the same person I'm used to seeing.
How many times did you actually have contact with the defendant?
3 times.
Okay. And where were you the first time?
Right in the, when you walk through, when you come into the auditorium, but not into the actual auditorium, the little room in front of the auditorium, I saw him there. I spoke to him then. And then when I was leaving the first time, I spoke to OJ then, and then I spoke to him when the recital was over.
Okay. And was his demeanor any different each of those 3 times that you spoke to him?
No, the last time I spoke to him,
Correct. That'll stand. Next question.
Okay. Was his demeanor any different the 3rd time that you spoke to him as opposed to the first 2 times?
no.
Overruled. You can ask the question.
Pardon me?
The answer was no to that question.
Yes, I said no.
Thank you.
Did you have a conversation with the defendant the 3rd time that you spoke to him?
Yes, I did.
And what was that conversation?
I was talking about how great the girls were and what a great job Sydney did, and Taylor, my daughter. And I think I mentioned that my husband had been taking videos of the girls and that we had taken close-ups of Sydney. And weren't they great and darling? And he just looked at me and said, uh-huh.
And that was it?
That was it. I mean, nothing else.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Mr. Cochran?
Thanks for your attention.
afternoon, Mrs. Garvey. Now, speaking of videos, your husband took some videos of that afternoon?
He
Is that
did.
correct? And have you ever seen a video of Mr. Simpson shortly after this recital interacting with the Brown family and with his son, Justin?
I did.
And when did you see that video?
I saw it on Friday.
And where'd you see it?
I saw it in the offices upstairs.
In the DA's office upstairs here?
I did.
Who showed that video to you?
Well, when I walked in, I didn't know I was coming down here Friday, and when I walked in to the witness coordinators, it was on her TV.
Well, who was the witness coordinator?
Patty Fairbanks.
And she was showing this particular video?
Not to me. I mean, I think there was somebody else that works in there watching it.
Okay, who was she showing it to that you know?
I don't know.
All right, well, I want to show you a video now, and you can tell us whether or not it's the same video they were showing up on Friday in the DA's office, okay, when you walked in? All right. What number is this for the record, Mr. Baker? 1003, Your Honor. I'd like to. This is 1002. I'd ask this witness to take a look at this video.
All right, Mrs. Garvey, there's a monitor right to your right hand, right there.
There, depicted there. Who is that?
Ron Fishman?
Is that Dr. Ron Fishman?
Yes, sir.
He's married to Cora Fishman?
That's correct.
You recognize those people there? Stop it there, Mr. Douglas.
Mhm.
You recognize those people depicted there?
Yes.
Who do you see depicted there?
I see OJ kissing Nicole's mom, or her mom kissing him, and her dad and Denise, her sister.
All right. By the way, you continue on, Mr. Douglas. It's the same video that you saw on Friday up in the DA's office?
I did.
Same video?
Yes, I did.
All right. Who's that with OJ? Is that Dr. Fishman?
Yes, sir.
And who's that who's just jumped up in Mr. Simpson's arm?
Justin.
That's his son?
Yes.
Now, see that smile on Mr. Simpson's face there?
Yes, sir.
Is that the way you normally saw him?
Yes,
Happy,
sir.
as you described?
Yes, sir.
Charismatic?
Well, I don't know. I wasn't there. But
What?
he looks happy.
You look happy in that photograph, do you?
Yes.
Did you? And is that the way, and those are some of the people who were at that concert we've been talking about here?
Yes, sir.
Is that right, Ms. Garvey? All right, now, when you came in the room in the DA's office on Friday, what time of day was that, by the way?
It was about 5 o'clock.
And did you talk to one of the deputy district attorneys?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
No.
Friday. I
On
got
Friday,
here, I don't know, 1 o'clock?
All right, and did you, after you saw this tape, you saw it with Ms. Fairbanks, did you?
Yes.
Did you then have occasion to speak to one of the deputy district attorneys assigned to this case?
No, I did not.
You didn't talk to him at all that day?
No, I did not.
You just came down here on your own?
Well, I was called to come down.
All right. You just waited for a while?
I waited, yes, and they sent me home.
Right now, I want to show you another photograph. At this point, we'll put it on the Elmo, the number. Sentence 1003. Did you see while you were at that concert on June 12th, 1994, at some point, did you see Sydney Simpson?
Oh, yes.
And do you recognize the little costume she's wearing there?
Oh, yes.
And did you see her father present her with some flowers on that day?
I did not.
You weren't present when that happened?
I was not, no.
That's, you're looking at the photograph, however. You recognize O.J. Simpson, do you not?
Yes, I do.
And you recognize Sidney?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, you spoke with the in the DA's office back on September 6, 1994, at about 11:30. You were interviewed by Detectives Van Adder and Lang, and Marcia Clark was present. Isn't that correct?
Mm-hmm.
At that time, you gave them a statement about what you had seen on June 12, 1994. Isn't that correct? And you were striving to be as accurate as you could at that particular time. Is that right?
Yes.
You got to answer out loud.
I'm sorry, yes.
All right. And you described for Van Adder, Lang, and Ms. Marcia Clark that as Mr. Simpson sat in that last row, he appeared to be deeply engrossed in conversation with Dr. Ron Fishman. Isn't that correct?
I think my husband said that.
Well, were you present?
I was.
And you saw that yourself, did you not?
Yes.
In other words, you saw Mr. Simpson talking or having a conversation with Dr. Fishman. Is that right?
No, when we were walking into the recital originally, that's when we saw them talking.
All right, well, I'm just asking you. You saw them talking, did you not?
Yes.
And that was the same Ron Fishman we just saw in the video.
Yes. I think I said that he was talking to, I don't know if it was Ron that he was talking to. It was somebody in a sweatsuit, I think. I don't think he had that outfit on. So it may not have been him.
Would it be helpful to you if I were able to show you what your statement was back in
Sure.
September 6, 1994?
Yes.
All right, may I put you on? I'd like to place this before you and ask you to, if you would, to read this to yourself, first of all, if you would. Read this paragraph.
Where?
From here to here, this paragraph.
The Garveys both stated, no?
To yourself?
Oh, to myself? I'm sorry. Yeah.
You read that?
Yes.
Does that tend to refresh your recollection about what you indicated to Van Adder and Lang back on September 6, 1994?
Well, I didn't say that I saw him in conversation with Ron when he was seated in that last row.
The question is, did that refresh your recollection reading that?
Oh, sure, yes.
Okay, so listen to my question,
Okay.
please. And you indicated in that conversation that Mr. Simpson appeared to be deeply engrossed in a conversation with Dr. Ron Fishman at some time during the evening. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that's the same Ron Fishman we just saw in the video. Is that correct?
I guess so, yes.
What, is there two Ron Fishmans?
No, but I don't remember him wearing that outfit, so maybe I could have been wrong. Maybe I didn't, maybe when I gave that statement, he may have been talking to somebody else and I may have just thought it was him. I don't know, because I don't remember him wearing that.
All right. Well, you also described to the district attorney's office he's wearing a gray cardigan sweater also. Isn't that correct?
OJ.
Yes, but he's wearing black, wasn't he?
Well, I told him it was a dark gray. I was very specific.
All
And
right,
I
well-
told him the belt, but that's not in there either.
When you, I presume they wrote down what you were saying, did they not?
Well, they didn't exactly write down everything I said.
I mean, they got it wrong?
Oh, maybe a little bit.
Okay. All right. Now, I want you to search your memory, ma'am.
Okay.
Do you recall that sometime when you came in that auditorium, you saw Mr. O.J. Simpson deeply engrossed in conversation with Dr. Ron Fishman that particular evening?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you were there, as I understand it, to see your daughter, who was
Yes.
also performing. Is that correct? And because your daughter was toward the end of the program at some point, you left. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And let's tell the court and jury, how long did this concert last, this recital last, from beginning to end?
I would say about 2 hours and 15 minutes approximately.
So when you first walked in, what time of evening was it?
It was 5 o'clock.
And so that your best recollection is that it lasted until about 7:15?
Yes.
And of that 2 hours and 15 minutes, ma'am, what time were you out of the auditorium? Did you leave and go back home?
I guess I left at about 5:30 and came back around 6:30.
So of the 2 hours and 15 minutes, you were gone perhaps an hour. And you can't tell us what went on during that hour, is that
No,
correct?
I cannot.
All right. Now, do you know how long this conversation lasted between Mr. O.J. Simpson and Dr. Ron Fishman?
No, sir.
Now, you described for the court and jury that at some point you came over and you addressed Mr. Simpson because you knew him. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And would I be correct in assuming that you considered him a friend? Is that correct?
An acquaintance.
All right, as an acquaintance. And so you came over to him, however, to speak. Is that correct?
I did.
All right, so you spoke to this acquaintance, and he didn't seem to be very responsive to the time you were talking to him.
No.
Was there anyone else seated beside him at the time that you were talking to him?
As I was leaving? I'm
At
sorry.
the time when you came over to speak to him, and you said he seemed kind of non-responsive. Was he seated with anybody else in that row?
I believe there was someone next to him.
And could that have been Dr. Ron Fishman?
I don't know.
Did he seem to you to be tired that evening, Mr. Simpson?
No.
Had you ever seen him tired before?
I don't know.
You don't know that,
I don't remember. I guess not. I don't know.
You don't know, do you?
No, I don't know.
All right. So at any rate, and you can't tell us who he was seated next to when you were talking to him?
I cannot. It was dark.
It was dark inside the recital?
Yes, it was.
At this time, were children performing on the stage at this point?
Yes, it was. They were.
And so
Well, it was in between, actually.
All right, well, let's see. You came over to him after the recital had started.
That's correct.
Someone is seated next to him. You can't tell us who.
That's correct.
It's dark inside the place.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And when you say dark, I presume there's just some lighting enough so that you can see the stage. Is that right?
Yes.
And this conversation was, I presume, rather brief, was it not?
Very brief.
All right, and then you went on, and I presume, to your seat. Is that correct?
No, I left.
Okay, this is about 5:30 when you were leaving.
No, yes, that's correct.
So as near as you could tell, was Mr. Simpson there when you arrived?
I did not look for him. No.
All right,
I
but
don't know.
when you first looked up, he was already there. Isn't that correct?
When I came back,
Oh, at any time. When you saw Mr. Simpson, he was inside the recital. Isn't that correct?
when I was leaving, I saw him inside the recital.
Okay. You don't know what time he got there, do you?
Oh, yes. I mean, well, I don't know when he got there. I saw him at 5 o'clock. When I arrived, he had arrived. He was in there,
Was he
waiting
there?
to sit down.
Or was he there already before you came?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that was the question. All right.
Oh, it was?
Okay,
I'm
no
sorry.
problem. It's all right. So then you left at 5:30. He was still there, right?
That's correct.
You don't know what happened between 5:30 and 6:30, right?
No.
And you came back at 6:30,
Yes.
right? And when you came back, you saw your daughter perform, right?
That's correct.
And did you see Mr. Simpson at or near the end of that concert?
I did.
Around 7:15.
That's right.
He was still there, right?
That's right.
All right. You described, in response to one of Mr. Darden's questions, that normally Mr. Simpson seemed to be a kind, happy person, very charismatic, and that's how he always seemed to you. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And when you saw him at the end of that video there, he
Mhm.
seemed to you to be kind and happy. Did he
Yes.
not?
Yes, he did.
Like he always does. Isn't that right?
That's right.
And when you saw this up in the DA's office on Friday, didn't you think, gee, that O.J. Simpson looked pretty kind and happy at that point? Didn't you think that?
Well, what I really thought was that was an amazing change.
Is that what you thought?
I really did.
Now, do you see that's the exact same date? You
I
understand
know,
that?
that's right. It amazes me.
Have you ever been at a place and been in a conversation with someone, someone comes up and interrupts you and you don't give them full attention? Ever happened to you?
Sure.
And then after you finish that conversation, you go on and your usual happy-go-lucky self after that? Ever happened to you?
Well, I don't know. I don't remember. But
In your own life, isn't it true that it's difficult to take something out of context in somebody's life in a particular afternoon? Would you agree isn't that, let me finish, wouldn't you agree that's a little difficult?
It's argumentative.
Maybe I can rephrase it. Please. We now know that at some point during that recital that afternoon, Mr. Simpson seemed his normal self, don't we?
yes.
And you're telling us that inside, in the dark, while the recital was going on at some point, he seemed to you to be kind of vacant. Is that the word used?
Well, he was in the light when I originally spoke to him and had my first impression formed.
All right, but you said he seemed vacant at some point today, did you not?
Yes.
And when you describe this, would you agree with me that the events of June 12th were fresher in your mind back in September 6th than they are now?
No.
You're one of those people where your memory gets better the longer time goes by?
No.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. When you described Mr. Simpson to Ms. Clark and to Detectives Van Adder and Lang, did you describe him, she described Simpson as appearing to be preoccupied and depressed? Did you describe it that way?
I think I felt that.
All right, and was that accurate?
think that's probably, yeah, maybe.
You never said anything about him being angry, did you?
Oh, yes, I think I did.
Did you read the statement? Did you ever see
I
them?
did read it, yes.
Did they ever put that down?
I don't, well, now that I've just read it, it was not there.
Let me approach. Would you like to see it again?
Yes, please.
Okay, may I approach you?
You may.
And please read this to yourself.
Okay. Yes.
And having read this particular paragraph, you see any place in there where Detectives Lang, Van Atter, or Ms. Clark have noted where you told them anything about Mr. Simpson being angry that afternoon?
No.
But you do see where you said he was preoccupied and depressed, right?
Yes.
And you also told them, did you not, that you never observed Mr. Simpson speak to anyone except Ron Fishman?
That's correct.
Right, and you saw the video, so you know he spoke to other people now, don't you?
That's correct.
And you described a period of time when you were leaving the recital. And so you were there at the end of the recital about 7:15. Did you see Mr. Simpson at that time also?
When I left?
Yes, when you were
Yes, I did.
Was he outside?
No.
Was he still inside?
Yes.
So you came out before he did?
That's correct.
Were you present when he presented those flowers to his daughter?
I was not.
You responded to, and strike that, in one of your bits of conversation, you said you'd had your baby. You'd had a baby at that time?
Yes.
And Mr. Simpson said Nick had told him that, and was that the name he referred to his ex-wife as, Nicole?
I don't know. I'd never heard him say that before.
When he said Nick, you didn't know what he was talking about?
Oh, I knew what he was talking about. But I'd never heard him call her Nick.
So when he said Nick, you knew he was talking about Nicole, did you?
Oh,
know?
I did, yes.
Did you, by the way, speak with Dr. Ron Fishman that evening?
I don't believe so.
Do you know him?
I have met him, yes.
And you had met him prior to June 12th, 1994?
Yes.
All right. And you left then the Paul Revere Middle School at about 7:15 that afternoon, right?
That's correct.
And the last time you saw Mr. Simpson that evening when he was at Paul Revere, was it about that same time, 7:15, a little before?
Yes.
And did you ever see him outside, like you saw him in the video, smiling?
No, I didn't.
I have nothing further at this point, Your Honor.
Mr. Darden, any redirect?
Ms. Garvey, there's a photograph up on the screen now. Do you see the defendant's left hand?
Yes.
You don't see the cuts on index finger on any finger, do you?
No.
You were also interviewed by members of the DA's office in October of last year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was that interview tape recorded?
I believe so.
And was it a detailed interview?
Very.
Was it more detailed than the interview you had with the LAPD?
Yes, it was.
And that interview was transcribed as well, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you told the DA staff in October that the defendant appeared mad, didn't you? What further foundation is necessary?
Hold on. All right, with the court reporter, please.
While the attorneys go to sidebar, we'll take a short break and be back with more of CNN's coverage of the Simpson trial after these words. Stay with us.
Only one adult cereal could be this much fun to eat. Basic 4, a playful mixture of flakes, fruits, and nuts. Basic 4 tastes so good, you'll forget it's for adults.
Will that be all, son?
You can depend on us when you need to be restarted. But AAA is also there when you want to be cruised, waterfalled, glaciered, wined, dined, and completely captivated by Holland America West Tours, AAA's choice for Alaska cruise and tour packages. Because AAA members get special savings. For details on our members-only offer on Holland America West Tours Alaska vacations or AAA membership, call your nearest AAA office.
Travel with someone you trust.
AAA.
I'm about to perform an amazing act. The act of breathing, made possible by Tavis D.
Now you can breathe easier. Prescription-strength Tavis D relieves tough congestion and sneezing for 12 straight hours.
There's nothing else like it.
When looking ahead to retirement, an investor has more than 5,000 mutual funds to consider. Every month, millions of words are written about them. So if this won't help you see things more clearly, maybe this will. Call your financial advisor or Alliance Capital. 1-800-789-1020. Real people, smart thinking, plain English. Alliance Capital. Mutual funds without the mystery.
How much younger do you want to look? The choice is yours when you get rid of gray gradually with Grecian Formula 16. Just comb in this clear liquid and look what happens. Day by day, Grecian Formula replaces gray with natural-looking color, so you can decide exactly how much gray you want to lose. Stop and leave a little gray, or keep going till you lose all the gray. How much younger do you want to look? Grecian lets you decide. Liquid, cream, or convenient foam.
Did my folks get to Disney World okay?
Uh-huh.
Still can't believe they went by themselves. They're getting so weird.
I think it's cute.
Yeah, but you know how they are. Dad will bury his nose in a book. The mom will spend half the day just sitting around. Can't you picture it? They'll have dinner in front of the TV, and by 10, they'll be dead on their feet.
You're awful.
Hey, I love them. But right now, I bet they're thinking, gosh, this place just isn't the same without the kids.
Call 1-407-W-DISNEY and make the dream come true.
The Mazda 626 was designed to be an aerodynamic capsule, stable at speeds up to 125 miles per hour.
And behold, the two of you shall talk.
With front-wheel drive, dual airbags, and an available V6. So even at 55, you can feel secure knowing
To honor and obey.
you've made the right decision. Now the decision is easier. Lease the Mazda 6260X for $199 a month with $1,000 down.
The attorneys are at sidebar now for a redirect of Candace Garvey, who was at the dance recital on June 12th, 1994. Let's just review some earlier testimony where Candace Garvey testified about O.J. Simpson's demeanor that night at the recital.
Mrs. Garvey, when you walked into the recital auditorium, did you see the defendant?
I did.
Did you notice anything unusual about him at that time?
Yes, I did.
What was that?
It was just, he was not the same as I had ever seen him before.
You had seen him on many prior occasions, is that correct?
That's correct.
And how was he different? How is it that he was not the same that evening?
Well, in the normal situation, he is very charismatic and gracious and you know, very kind and a happy person. And this time, I immediately noticed that it was a vast departure from the norm of how I've ever seen him before. He just seemed a little vacant, non-responsive.
You said things to him and he didn't respond?
That's correct.
What kinds of things did you say to the defendant?
I you know, said hello, hi, how are you? And he stared at my husband and I, and really nothing in response. And so I said, well, I had the baby. And he just stared at me and said, yeah, Nick told me. And my husband walked away at that time. And I almost couldn't even move. I mean, I knew something, you know, was wrong, and I felt very uncomfortable.
Candace Garvey is now once again on the stand awaiting redirect by prosecuting attorney Christopher Darden. The court just asked Mr. Darden if he'd hold on for just a second. You're looking at Candace Garvey in the lower right of your screen. And Judge Lancito is on the bench, obviously. Christopher Darden is about to question her about an interview she gave to the DA's office on October 27th, 1994. Let's listen in.
Do you recall being concerned about the defendant when you saw his demeanor?
Yes,
Okay. And in fact, you told that to the DA investigators back in October, didn't you?
I did.
And you wondered why he appeared the way he appeared at the time.
I did.
And in fact, you told the DA investigators, and I quote from line 22 of page 19, but then I thought, no, he's mad. I mean, he couldn't even answer some questions. Hi, how are you? Do you remember telling that to the DA investigators?
I do.
Okay. You concluded that he was mad when you saw him, didn't you?
Yes.
And were you concerned at all that maybe you did something to upset him?
Well, I think I initially personalized it, but knew that that couldn't be the case.
Did you ask the defendant if he was upset?
I didn't.
Didn't you tell the defendant to go outside and take a walk?
No.
Let me ask you about something you just told Mr. Cochran, but that he glossed over.
Mr. Darden. Mr. Darden, please.
I apologize. I'm sorry, Mr. Cochran. I apologize. May I proceed, Your Honor? Mrs. Garvey, a moment ago, did you indicate to us and to counsel that there was an amazing change between the defendant's demeanor at the recital or during the recital and his demeanor after the recital?
Yes.
And you used the word amazing, is that correct?
Yes.
Could you tell us what you meant by that, please?
Without an objection, thank you. Overruled.
Thank you. You may answer the question.
Well, I mean, he was, in my opinion, completely different than I'd ever seen him, either as a fan or someone that knew him personally. And to see that videotape, it was amazing. I mean, amazing difference. But I guess that's why he's a spokesman. I mean, he's...
Thank you. Next. The conclusion, that's why he's a spokesman, is stricken as being non-responsive to the question. Juries to disregard that portion of the answer. Mr. Darden, next question.
Okay. You also indicated that the auditorium was dark once the program began.
Yes.
But was it so dark that you couldn't see the defendant or locate him in the crowd and walk over to him and talk with him?
Oh, no, I recognized him.
So you could see that well?
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Madam Reporter, how's your paper supply? That's all you have, Mr. Cochran, 2 minutes.
Let's see, I'll speak faster than usual then, so we'll get it done. I'm only kidding.
I also have to change court reporters.
Certainly, Your Honor. How many times did you speak with the district attorney's office in connection with this case prior to your testimony here today?
I believe I was down here twice, and I think they sent a special investigator to my house once or twice.
And did you give statements each time they came out and talked with you?
I talked to them. Is that what, I mean, I see a formal statement that you showed me. I've never seen another one other than that.
All right. Now, you don't have any question in your mind, do you, ma'am, that the video that we showed you and showed the jury was O.J. Simpson at the conclusion of that particular recital?
That's correct, it was him.
Isn't it great we have video? Isn't that great?
That's correct.
And, you know, we can actually see how the person looked, can't we?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
All right, anything more, Mr. Darden?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mrs. Garvey, that concludes your testimony for this afternoon. Please don't discuss your testimony with anybody else except for the attorneys till the trial is over. Do you understand the order?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. All right, you're excused. All right, counsel, I need to take a court reporter recess at this point. Ladies and gentlemen, this will be a 15-minute recess. Please remember my admonition to you, don't discuss the case amongst yourselves, form any opinions about the case. We're still in session, ladies and gentlemen. Or allow anybody to talk to you about the case, and ask you to step back into the jury room, please.
As you heard, court has adjourned for a 15-minute recess. We will, of course, be back when court is back. Right now, let's go to Judy Woodruff in Washington for a news update. Judy?
Thank you, Jim. We'll have the latest on efforts to resolve the baseball strike as well as the latest on the shuttle mission coming up when we have a news update.
Tonight in The Crossfire, her testimony shatters O.J.'s celebrity image. But why did she change her mind about Nicole's abuse? Crossfire, tonight, 8:30 Eastern on CNN.
Billy, what's wrong?
I can't get this math.
Never before in America and in no other country in the world has it been easier to get top grades in math. How? The answer is Math Made Easy videotapes. Basic math, high school math, or college math, all tested and proven instructional videotapes just for you. If you need top grades in math, Math Made Easy tutoring tapes are a must. Used by educators all over America. It's like having your own professional tutor at your side. Follow the thousands of students who have gained confidence and have prepared for A's in math. Select the tapes you need.
Call now for details and a free brochure. Dial 1-800-MATH-192. Parents or grandparents, now's the time to help a student in your family.
Mom, I got an A.
That's great.
Math Made Easy tutoring tapes are guaranteed. Call now for more information. Dial 1-800-MATH-192. That's 1-800-MATH-192.
Joan Collins on Larry King Live, tonight.
Hello, I'm Judy Woodruff in Washington, and this is a news update. One of the defendants in the New York terrorism trial has changed his plea to guilty. And in a statement read in court on Monday, the man claimed he was carrying out a religious order from another of the defendants, Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman, when he led a plot to bomb some of New York City's most famous landmarks. CNN's Brian Jenkins has the story.
Prosecutors called Sadiq Ibrahim Sadiq Ali the mastermind of a plot to bomb traffic tunnels and landmark buildings in New York City. He was arrested with 4 other men in June of 1993 at a rented garage in Queens as they allegedly mixed fuel and fertilizer in steel drums. Last summer, Sadiq Ali offered to cut a deal with the government, but after 8 weeks, prosecutors sent him back to jail.
Mr. Ali was too expensive a partner, a date for the prom. Now, apparently, prom dresses are on sale, and Mr. Ali is indeed going to dance with the government.
The attorney for Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman says there were signs that Sadiq Ali, a former translator for the Sheikh at news conferences, was considering a plea bargain. Prosecutors say he contacted them first 3 weeks ago through a fellow jail inmate, and that an agreement was reached Sunday evening. Sadiq Ali was then brought to court before the scheduled morning session to read a 6-page statement admitting his guilt and implicating all 11 of the other defendants. Defense attorneys say they fully expect Sadiq Ali to testify for the prosecution, probably in a month or 2, but the U.S. Attorney's Office won't confirm that. The Sheikh's attorney says she isn't worried about what Sadiq will say on the witness stand.
We assume it's going to be a new layer of innuendo, a new layer of false readings by a person who at least has demonstrated on the tapes that he is perhaps equally psychotic as Mr. Imad Salem.
Imad Salem was the government informant in the case, a former Egyptian army colonel who secretly recorded conversations with Sadiq, the Sheikh, and a number of the other defendants. Defense lawyers have argued it was Salem who induced and entrapped the other men into a plot they either weren't aware of or wouldn't have joined on their own. Now, the defense will likely heap more of the blame on Sadiq Ali, claiming he kept the others in the dark about a plot largely of his making. Brian Jenkins, CNN, New York.
The White House is getting ready to make its pitch to end the 6-month-old baseball strike. Baseball mediator William Usry is at the White House right now after holding last-minute talks with the players' chief negotiator, Donald Fehr. President Clinton had set a 5 p.m. Eastern Time deadline for players and owners to reach a settlement. Earlier, Mr. Clinton said he is urging the two sides to solve their problem without government help.
We're working. I just keep telling them to play ball. It's time to go. You know, this is it's just a few hundred folks trying to figure out how to divide nearly $2 billion. They ought to be able to figure that out in time for the rest of America to enjoy this baseball season.
If players and owners can't agree, the mediator, Usry, is to present his own settlement proposal to the White House. The Clinton administration has sent its 1996 budget to Congress. Republicans are complaining that the $1.6 trillion spending plan does not do enough to reduce the deficit. CNN's Claire Shipman reports the White House proposal is just the start of the budget process.
Flanked by his economic advisors, charts, and graphs, the president made a pitch for his budget proposal, which attempts to offer a bit of something for everyone.
My budget cuts spending, cuts taxes, cuts the deficit, and does not cut education or Social Security or Medicare. That is a good budget. It continues to reduce the deficit without undermining the things that I believe the federal government should be doing.
The administration claims $144 billion in cuts overall, $63 billion to go toward a middle-class tax cut, and the rest to pay for further deficit reduction. But budget watcher Carol Cox-Waite calls it smoke and mirrors.
We would say it's much ado about nothing. There's very little in this budget. The tax cut is the only major initiative. It does not cut spending $144 billion. It does not cut the deficit at all.
The administration claims the deficit is falling in relation to economic growth, but the actual deficit, based on the president's proposal, won't fall, but will rise slightly over 5 years, hovering near $200 billion. The obvious priority for this president is his tax cut, part of his middle-class Bill of Rights. It will offer $500 per child tax credit for middle-income families. It will also expand IRA eligibility and allow IRA withdrawals to pay for education or medical needs. And it will offer a tax deduction for education. And to help pay for his middle-class tax cut, the president proposes to cut 3 cabinet departments and 2 agencies, to end 130 programs like the Interstate Commerce Commission, and to consolidate 270 others. The GI Bill for American Workers, for example, are 60 HUD programs, which will be reduced to 6 performance partnerships. But it's not all cuts. He's asking for more money for some programs that he sees as part of his agenda, the National Service Program, for example, or Head Start, and more border patrols to head off illegal immigration. The Clinton budget plan is already facing criticism on Capitol Hill, in some cases for the tax cut, too big or too small, but most of all from Republicans who say he's not going far enough toward deficit reduction. This plan, in effect, lets the Republicans, who say they want to balance the budget, do some of the dirty work, like digging into Medicare or Medicaid. The president's already learned his lesson that cutting the deficit doesn't always pay politically. Claire Shipman, CNN, the White House.
Well, as we just reported, the White House deadline for players and owners to settle the baseball strike has passed. We want to go now to CNN's Wolf Blitzer at the White House for the latest and what's been going on in the meetings there. Wolf?
Judy, the White House Press Secretary Mike McCurry just moments ago told reporters that the federal mediator William Usry is in the Oval Office right now meeting with President Clinton. Mr. Usry, according to McCurry, has asked the president if he can extend the deadline, if you will, until mid-afternoon tomorrow. That would be Tuesday. The president is considering that proposal, although McCurry expects the president to accept Usry's recommendation. Mr. Usry has reported to the White House that there was very little, if any, progress in these last-minute negotiations. The president right now is not very optimistic that there will be a breakthrough. In other words, Mr. Usry will have to put forward his own recommendation for trying to settle this baseball strike. He has asked the president to give him some time overnight and tomorrow morning to refine, in the words of McCurry, his proposal. He will release it at in the course of tomorrow, mid-afternoon, sometime tomorrow. The president is not very encouraged, is not very hopeful. Of course, if Mr. Usry does come forward with his own proposal, that presumably would be something that both the players and the owners might be more willing to accept than their own respective proposals. But once again, the president is giving Mr. Usry until tomorrow afternoon more time to try to put together a settlement of this baseball strike. Judy?
So, Wolf, the president is giving more time, even though, as you just reported, Mr. Usry is not seeing any particular give or any reason to believe that something will change.
That's right. There's been no significant movement. In fact, the president, according to McCurry, is not optimistic that any progress has been made. As you know, there was this 5 o'clock Eastern time deadline that had been imposed. That has now, as you pointed out, come and gone. But Mr. Usry wants some more time overnight to go ahead and put together his own set of proposals to resolve this. He's still at the White House in the Oval Office. Behind me, we're told he will be going back to the Mayflower Hotel, probably with the Labor Secretary, Robert Reich, and they will make a statement to reporters at the Mayflower Hotel.
All right, Wolf Blitzer will be tuning in for whatever happens. Thanks, from the White House. Coming up next, we'll have the latest on the space shuttle attempt to rendezvous with the Russian space station.
Look at this. It says here the average citizen works until May 5th every year just to pay taxes. Can you believe that?
You can't control the tax laws, but Franklin can help control how they affect you.
That's a third of the year we spend working for the government.
Investment income free from federal and many states' personal income taxes.
No, this time I thought I was working for myself.
Monthly dividends to help your cash flow now.
I wonder just how much tax I've paid in my life.
To learn more, call 1-800-342-FUND.
The least they can do is name a national park after me.
In 1895, Wilhelm Röntgen discovered X-rays. The following year, Siemens worked closely with him to develop its first X-ray tubes. That was then. This is now. Today, Siemens manufactures imaging technology that helps doctors save lives. And with 45,000 people nationwide, the men and women of Siemens will continue to manufacture ideas that even Professor Röntgen never dreamed of. Siemens, precision thinking.
Only one had the power of a bird called Parker. Only one has the passion of Maynard Ferguson. Only one had the fluid grace of Wes Montgomery. Only one plays like this. Seville STS with the North Star system. The great performers are always creating a higher standard.
193 million sisters and brothers, moms and dads, 126 million, 250 million friends. Now, for everyone, MCI introduces new Friends and Family. A 25% savings automatically when you spend just $10 a month. That's a 25% savings on every call to everyone in America, no matter what long-distance company they use. New Friends and Family. MCI customers are invited to join, and so is everyone else. So call us.
Finally, I was soloist instead of my big sister, Patty. What a time for a cough. Then Patty rescued me with Robitussin cough drops. My doctors always said Robitussin knows coughs. Well, they sure worked fast. Soothed my throat, and I could feel those vapors. Thanks to Robitussin, I sang so great.
The water is warm.
I made my sister proud.
Robitussin cough drops from the cough experts. And introducing Robitussin sugar-free cough drops.
Tonight, a comprehensive review of the day's proceedings and legal analysis of the O.J. Simpson trial. 11:30 Eastern on CNN.
Meals Express, Sonoma County's #1 delivery service.
If you order, they will come.
Thank you for calling Meals Express. How can I help you?
For delivery in Santa Rosa, Roanoke Park, and Katati, call 584-1915.
It's the best place in Sonoma County to get in shape. It's very easy to work out here. It's something you want to do. It's not something you have to do. That's a big difference.
24 chances a day, 7 days a week to get here. It's very easy to work into your schedule.
The 24-Hour Health Club, 680 East Katati Avenue in Katati. For a limited time with no initiation fee, you have choices. Call 795-0400 for details on Choices memberships.
Joan Collins on Larry King Live tonight.
It is only the second time that U.S. and Russian manned spacecraft have flown together. The first time was 20 years ago. Today, despite a series of mechanical difficulties, the U.S. Space Shuttle Discovery closed within 37 feet of the Russian Mir space station. Here are some spectacular images from the historic rendezvous.
Discovery is now directly underneath the Russian space station. The distance to the orbiter is right around 3,000 or so feet.
This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in space.
Must get your heart rate racing, huh, Wicks? We have it. We have Mir?
Yeah, is that okay?
Yes, sir. We have a picture of Mir.
From the cameras on board the Mir space station, as the two spacecraft rendezvous, Discovery is currently about 422 feet in front of the Mir space station.
Discovery for Wicks.
Go ahead.
You have a go for the approach to 10 meters, starting that on time to arrive at a closest approach at 13 hours, 58 minutes.
Right now, Discovery is still about a mile and a third away from the space station. It is slowly coming up to the space station at this point from below it. We are now receiving a view of the Space Shuttle Discovery from the Russian space station Mir. Discovery is once again about 670 feet away from the Mir space station, orbiting just over the South Pacific Ocean off the coast of South America.
This is views on board Space Station Mir of cosmonauts aboard the vehicle. Dr. Valery Polyakov now holding the endurance record for time in space.
This is Mission Control Houston. This picture of the Russian space station Mir is being provided to us by the low light level cameras on board Discovery. Physician Valery Polyakov, one of the Mir crew members, is occasionally shining a flashlight at the crew members to help with the
And we're thinking maybe you need to pick up our dot a little bit.
somewhat sending them a message from one of the windows of the Mir station. The rendezvous officer here in the flight control room has just reported that Discovery is now about 135 feet away from the space station and is right on target for our operations today. The view from Discovery, it's that small circular dark spot. She has asked the members from Discovery several times whether or not they can see her wave. Earlier, the Mir cameras were able to pick up a picture of Vladimir Titov from the windows of the orbit. Discovery is now about 44 feet away from
Houston, we basically braked, and we're going to try and maintain this distance.
Copy. And we're wondering if the spotlight helps on the target. Discovery, below you.
Spaceship closer together.